All right, let's go ahead and get started. First off, before we do anything else, I want to share with you the podcast assignment. I don't believe I shared that with you yesterday. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, podcast assignment. So you go to the classroom website, and we're going to go to beginning of school syllabus and handouts first. Again, eyes up on the screen here. Halfway down the left-hand side, it says podcast assignment outline. Okay, you need to click on that. Once you've clicked on it, you can make a copy of it and make it your own. And then you can type into it. You can print it out and write in it. It's an option. Or you can just recreate the outline on a sheet of notebook paper. I'll accept it that way as well. Sound good? The gist of it is when you go back to the website, go to Global Cultures, podcast is a tab here. You click on that. You've got quite a few podcasts to choose from. A lot of the podcasts relate in some way, some type of lesson that we have here in class. Just gives you some more details, all right? So you can choose any of these that you would like. They come from two different sources. One, Stuff You Should Know. Stuff You Should Know is from HowStuffWorks.com. You got two guys, they have conversation, go back and forth, just discussing certain topics, okay? The other one is from Freakonomics Radio. There's a book called Freakonomics. It's more of like social economics and sociology. There's a couple of those in there as well, which are fairly interesting stuff. So those are the two sources that I've used. But you need to listen to the podcast and then fill this out as you listen. What we're looking for is 3 main points, okay? When you listen, it's not going to specifically tell you that this is main point number. You're going to have to listen intently and figure out what is the main point. Okay. Once you find main point number 1, you're going to write it in here, and then you write in the time. So all the podcasts, they have times in it. You know, as you're watching, you can look at the time. You write in the approximate time of that main point over here on this side. Then, for that main point, you're going to write 2 details over here on the right-hand side. Okay. Once you've done that, it'll usually move on, and it'll have probably 4 or 5 main points. Right? Then you're going to move on to the next main point. Write it in here. Time. 2 details over here on this side. Same thing with this one. A 3rd main point. Write it in here. Time on this side. And 2 details here. Once you've done the 3 main points and the details associated with it, then just like our paraphrase and summarize section of our sub-search, you're going to do the same thing for our podcast. Write a PS statement down here at the bottom. 10 words or less. Sound good? 10 words or less to summarize the podcast. Make sure that it's a complete sentence. Make sure it has some type of purpose in it, right? If you're so vague, I'm not going to give you credit for it. Okay, you got to have some type of substance to the PS statement. Okay, that is due on Monday. You need to have a hard copy when you turn it in. Come into class on Monday. I know that we don't turn in a lot of hard copy stuff in here, but this is one of them. Sound good? So you got to have it printed out. Don't come into class and say, hey, I got to print it out. Or I'll share it with you. That's my favorite. All right? Why don't I do all the work for you? Right? No, you print it out and then you bring it to me. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Everybody good there? I don't print out stuff for you. I'm not doing your work for you. Okay? You need to do it for yourself. Sound good? Okay? So don't share it with me via email either. I won't accept it that way. Okay? All right. Let's go back to our bell work. We'll get our hummus here in just a little bit. Actually, let me start with describing what hummus is, because some students have asked. A student earlier this morning showed up, and they were all nervous. You know, what is, I'm going to eat something I don't want to eat. And I completely understand that mindset, because that used to be me. I grew up on a hog farm, and so we ate a lot of pork. You know, bacon, pork chops, ham, right? And then cheeseburgers, a lot of Americanized food, pizza. That's all we ate, okay? Then I got married, and my wife, completely different, right? She loves trying out new things, right? And so that means a lot of foreign food. And so it took me a while to get used to that. So, you know, Chinese food, that's just the start of it, right? Chinese food is really Americanized that way. It's not even really truly authentically Chinese food. One of her favorite things to eat now is Vietnamese food. So it's some pretty good stuff there as well. So I was reluctant at first, but you know, yeah, it's, opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I was missing out on before. So maybe this is the beginning for you to get past some of your comfort zone and then try something new. So what is hummus? What's it made from? It's made from what they call garbanzo beans, which is another fancy word for chickpeas. Sound good? Chickpeas. I know we don't grow them out here in Illinois all that much, right? But chickpeas it's in the bean family. It's kind of like a pea, like a green pea, right? But it's bigger, and then it has more of a tan color to it, okay? A lot of times in the grocery store, you're going to find them in cans, right? Canned garbanzo beans or canned chickpeas. If you wanted to make hummus on your own, what you do is you take a couple cans of that and then put it in a blender. And you blend all those chickpeas up, and it creates a paste. And it's like what I refer to as, it's like the Middle Eastern peanut butter, right? It doesn't taste like peanut butter, but it's like butter, like that. Sound good? It's a buttery type of substance, okay? It's really actually bland. It's really bland. But the thing is, because it's so bland, it gives the chef or whoever's making it an opportunity to incorporate many different types of flavors. So we have red pepper hummus today, right? So hummus with a red pepper flavoring to it, which is pretty good stuff, right? If I don't say so myself. Pass.
That don't sound good.
I encourage you to try it. Trust me. Hummus is starting to become more and more acculturated into our society, right? I've seen more and more young people, for lunch, what I've got hummus and chips, right? And that's what they eat for lunch, right? Okay. So it gives you an opportunity. Now, I said that we'd have pita bread in the emails and early in the week. I went to IGA last night, no pita bread. Right? For some reason they don't have it. Okay. So we got pita chips. So it's a little bit drier, but same idea. Sound good? The reason why I like the pita bread, pita chips, it gives us an opportunity to talk about the Jewish culture, Jewish heritage. So we mentioned Judaism the other day with our monotheistic Big Three chart. They have a celebration called the Passover that's big in the Jewish culture, right? The Passover is associated with the Great Exodus. It goes back in their history, goes back to the time period of Moses, within the time period of their captivity underneath the Egyptians, right? And so they were told, and it was really after the Passover, they were told the day before their Great Exodus that they were supposed to make bread without any yeast. So it's unleavened bread. The reason why is because they were told that they got to be ready to go, ready to leave. Okay, so they didn't have time to wait for the bread to rise, right? So they ate unleavened bread. They had unleavened bread to eat on their Exodus. Sound good? And again, the idea is that they just got to be ready to go. So the Passover, unleavened bread is a big part of that. Unleavened bread is just as a whole is a big part of the Jewish culture that way. Sound good? So we can make a connection to that with our pita bread there. Okay? All right. Let's talk about our bowl. You'll get an opportunity to get some your hummus and your pita chips after a bit when we start the movie. Okay? Current president of Iran. Who's that? Tyler? Forgot his name. You got a Chromebook there. You can Google it real quick. Comes up real fast.
Well, it's in my notes and I
It didn't flex your mental muscles. Consequently, it's not going to stick in a long-term memory. Even though you're going to get it here in a second, somebody's going to share it with you. However, you're not going to attach any type of connection to it. So when it comes to retrieval, you're going to try to get it, and then nothing's going to be there. Right? So you got to flex your mental muscles when you do these things that way. What do we got? Hassan Rouhani. Very good. Hassan. Everybody say Hassan Rouhani.
Hassan Rouhani.
Very good. Very good. Hassan Rouhani. Now, again, yesterday we described him as being the most pro-Western of the presidents of Iran in their recent history, right? So we think that's a good thing, right? Pro-Western. But then we realized, how much power does the Iranian president really have?
Not a lot.
Not as much power as the next guy, right?
Yeah.
The current supreme leader. So who is that? Yep. Syed Ali Khamenei. Everybody say Syed Ali Khamenei. Ali Khamenei. All right, so he's going to take on the title of the Ayatollah. Again, Ayatollah is another word for a teacher of Islamic studies. But he is, so there's many Ayatollahs, but he is the Ayatollah. So the Ayatollah is like the most powerful of all of the Ayatollahs and the most powerful of all the politicians in Iran. He's the guy that makes all the decisions. Remember I said, ironically, yesterday, they don't have much freedom of speech in Iran, but he tweets early and often. Sound good? He likes to use Twitter. Okay. 3 differences between the Arabic culture and the Persian culture. So I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to have to share some information about this at the beginning of the class, and so I made sure I put it in the bell work so I didn't forget about it. Sound good? So 3 things. First off, language. Right? Language. With the Persian culture, sometimes they call it the Persian language. Sometimes it's known as Farsi. F-A-R-S-I. Sound good? With the Arabic culture, they're going to speak Arabic. Now, sometimes you think that Arabic is all the same, right? That it doesn't matter where you go in the Middle East, they're going to speak Arabic and we're going to be able to understand it. Well, people that speak Arabic in North Africa, they have a difficult time understanding the people in, say, Iraq that speaks Arabic, right? Because there are some huge variations in that particular language. Sound good? But overall, between the Persian of Iran, it's Farsi, and then Arabic for Arabian Peninsula in the Arabic culture. Number 2 is religion. Religion. I'll share this with you first. Now, if you live in Iran, does it mean that you have to be a Muslim?
No.
No. Okay, you can be anything. There's Jews in Tehran, a lot of them, right? There's a lot of Christians in Iran. There's a number of them. I wouldn't say a lot, but the majority of the people are Muslims in Iran. Okay, same thing with if you're in Iraq or Arabia, Saudi Arabia, right? There are predominantly Muslim, but there are also Jews and Christians there as well. Okay, but because of the popularity of Islam in both of these regions, the religion with the Persians would be, the Persian culture is the Shiites or the Shia, S-H-I-A-H. They have a tendency to be the Shiite sect of Islam, while the Arabic or the Arabian culture has a tendency to be more of the Sunni Muslims. Everybody got that? So Shiites towards Persian, and then Sunnis towards Arabic culture. Last thing, it's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but the Persian culture may have a tendency to be a little bit more pro-Western, and this goes back a couple thousand years because of a guy that conquered the Persian Empire and introduced some Western European ancient civilization ideas. He was from Macedonia, and he assimilated himself into the Greek culture. He became this great Greek leader, and then established the largest empire the world had ever seen at that point in time. Does anybody know who that guy is? Yep.
Is it Napoleon?
Nope, good try. So it precedes him by a couple thousand years. Cyrus the Great? Nope. So he comes after Cyrus the Great, I believe. It would be Alexander the Great. So he's a great guy, but it's Alexander. Sound good? So Alexander the Great, a Macedonian guy, right, grows up. He's schooled by these great Greek philosophers, Aristotle. He acquires all this Greek-like characteristics, and then he starts conquering people, expand the Greek Empire, conquers the Persians, and so consequently the Persian culture acquires a lot of Greek-like culture. So Western civilization, what we call the Western culture, is introduced into the Persian culture. Sound good? So maybe that's one reason why people in Iran, you look at them, their way of life, very similar to our culture here in the United States. They dress like you and I do. Okay, a lot of them do dress like you and I. Sound good? All right, let's move on to our word of the day. What are we doing with our word of the day? We're doing semicolons. Semicolons with our word of the day. Semicolons are very similar to compound sentences, okay? Eyes up on the screen real quick. You've got a complete sentence here, right? Complete sentence. Instead of writing a comma and a conjunction with a semicolon, you're going to put a semicolon in. So it's a comma with a period on top of it, right? Our rules here in class, we're going to have a transition word after the semicolon. Sound good? It's a must. They have to, right? Our two transition words to choose from are however or therefore. You can choose one or the other, but it's got to be one of these two inside your sentence. Sound good? Notice that the H is lowercase and the T is lowercase. Sound good? One of the most common mistakes that I see in students writing is they'll capitalize the H, they'll capitalize the T. After a semicolon, you don't capitalize. It's not a new sentence. It's the same sentence, so lowercase, okay? We're going to have a comma. This is another mistake. After our transition word, you have to have a comma. So however, comma, therefore, comma. And then you're going to have another complete sentence. Just like in a compound sentence, after the comma conjunction, it can't be a fragment. It's got to be a complete sentence. The other thing to think about is with a semicolon sentence, the content of this side has to be related to the content of this side. They can't be two drastically different ideas. The reason why the semicolon is there is because they're interrelated. They're related to one another. Sound good? All right. Our word of the day today is ebullient. Ebullient. Cheerful and bubbly. Glim and gloomy is our antonym. The ebullient song, the cheerful, bubbly song, was so uplifting that I danced in my chair. Who's this, Miss Good? Oh, she does not know. Who is that? It's Taylor Swift. Yeah, it looks like Taylor Swift. It is Taylor Swift. Mr. Duran, you like Taylor Swift?
No.
She is not one of your favorite?
I do.
No? What would be wrong? Would there be anything wrong if he liked Taylor Swift? Would you think less of him if he did?
Yes, there's
No.
no. Maybe.
Allie.
I'm just
All right.
She's not.
One more synonym. Cheerful, bubbly. Cheyenne?
Good one.
Happy.
Yeah.
You an ebullient person?
No.
No. Antonyms. Glim and gloomy. Mr. Duran? Sad. Our part of speech. Mr. Folks? It is a descriptive word. It is an adjective. Okay? Our sentence context today. Again, you have to have a semicolon sentence. We're talking about the Kurds. That's Kurds. The Kurds. Anybody been watching the news recently? No? We're oblivious to what's going on in the world, right?
Is that something that's going next to her in that picture?
Yeah.
It is. I know it is. Guys, I'm too.
What?
All right, so since we're talking about the Middle East, this is good for us to reference things that are going on in current events. It says the story. Syria's government, President Assad's civil war, you guys familiar with that? Is taking advantage of the chaos going down in its country. Let's go over the chaos first. ISIS used to control territory in northern Syria. They used to. But the Kurds, a semi-autonomous ethnic group and a key U.S. ally, friends of the United States, in the region, helped kick the terror group out. It detained about 11,000 ISIS fighters. This has always been a problem for Syria's neighbor, Turkey, since it sees the Kurds as a terror threat. Last week, President Trump started pulling U.S. troops out of the area, which allowed Turkey to attack the Kurds, again, who they see as terrorists, with airstrikes and heavy artillery. Dozens of people have been killed, talking about Kurds here, and have at least 160,000 others, including the Kurds, have been displaced. Abandoned by the U.S., the Kurds formed a new alliance over the weekend. All right, so we've broken off an agreement with them, so they started making an agreement with another one. So who did they make the agreement with? Anybody got a guess?
Am I right?
Iran's a good guess. Nope.
Israel.
The Syrians. The Syrian government, headed up by President Bashar al-Assad, as in the guy whose regime is responsible for using chemical weapons on his own people. Now the Russian and Iran-backed government has entered the area because Russia and Iran support Assad, so they entered the area for the first time in years. So the United States is getting out, and these countries are getting in. A major shift in the country's 8-year civil war. Many are worried that Trump's erratic move has now bolstered a leader that the U.S. now considers a war criminal. How is the world reacting? The European Union condemned the military offensive by Turkey and promised to stop arms sales to Turkey. A spokesman for the UN Secretary General says he's calling for immediate de-escalation. And President Trump, he's calling for an immediate ceasefire, raising tariffs on Turkey and imposing sanctions on the country. He also plans to leave some troops behind in southern Syria to make sure ISIS doesn't regain control of the region, while pulling all the other troops out of the country. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she agrees with Senator Lindsey Graham that Congress should work to overturn Trump's original decision to leave the Kurds on their own. Okay, so that's our sentence context today. The Kurds, again, it's spelled Kurds. Make sure you have a semicolon sentence. Make sure you have a buoyant in your sentence.